So Sabelo, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we walk into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your own backgrounds? Where did you grow up?
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick, for the opportunity. I'm honored to be here. So Sabelo is from a very small town in KwaZulu-Natal called Newcastle. I was born there, I grew up there until I had to move to Johannesburg to further my studies university.
And tell us, what was your dream career when you grew up?
Interestingly enough, I wanted to be a sports star, particularly a rugby sports star.
And I believe you were inspired by one of them, one World Cup winning rugby star.
That is correct. And his name is Andres Neyman. He went to the same school that I went to, and we pretty much as growing up, young inspired rugby players from school, we really looked up to him, especially considering what he achieved. So he made us believe that it doesn't matter where you come from, anything was possible.
And tell us, you started your career, I believe, as a financial planner, and then you went into hospitality. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Interesting. So so how I basically that came about was it's a very interesting story, which I'm happy to share with you right now. So I graduated and I'm a sports science graduate. That obviously comes from my passion for sports, and unfortunately at that time, job opportunities were very scarce, and I couldn't sit at home and not do anything, and then an opportunity came through where Old Mutual obviously had engaged First National Bank, to train, postgraduates not for them to be at home. So I then took up the course. It was a quick 6 months crash course that I did, and that's how my journey started in the banking sector. And which I obviously did for about 6 months. Where what happened was, one of the leads I had at that time, there was a product that actually FNB had put together with Discovery at that time. So there was a lead that came through of a property that was bought in Sandhurst, of which it was a very big lead. And for me, when I was actually presented with that lead, I even said to them, "No, guys, this is for senior financial planners," and I was asked to go with it. So eventually, I was able to get the appointment to go meet up with this person that bought this property. And at that time, I was already, because we were commission based, and at that time, I was already planning, what I was going to do with my commission. I was ready to travel to go on a little holiday.
Good.
And to my surprise, when I got to the place where this property was, to my surprise was that the product that I was actually going to sell, the owner of the property actually owned it. So I'm happy to share the place. It's the Saxon Hotel. So what happened was, just before the World Cup, they wanted to extend. It was just a 26 bedroom property, and they wanted to increase, obviously, purely because of the demand was there. The World Cup was coming, and my appointment, I waited for the gentleman for about an hour and a half in a meeting that only lasted 3 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, because obviously when I wanted to present to him why I was there, a very difficult man to get hold of, a very busy man. And when I obviously mentioned to him why I was there, he took up a very big file to say, "You know what, young man, what you're coming to sell here, we own it." Right. And I thanked him for his time. As I stood up, all he said to me is, he asked me, "Do you know anything about hospitality?" At that time, I was very young and naive. The only thing I knew about hospitality is you just go to a hotel, there's a bed, you sleep, you eat, and you leave. I never understood there was, the whole production and everything behind it. And I was very upset and disappointed, obviously, because, they went my commission that I already planned for. Yeah. And, when he said to me, "You know what, you're in the wrong industry," and like I said, I was still young and naive at that time. If you had mentioned anything about hotels to me, then it was I would have dismissed you very quick. So obviously then he gave me his business card, we exchanged contact details, and when I went home, I did a little bit of research about, hospitality, and then that's how everything started. I just said, you know what, let me just give this a try, and how he even made it worse, he said to me, you know what, I know you don't understand anything about hospitality, however, you will start as my PA and I will teach you the ropes. And at that time for me, if you spoke about a PA, you was, I thought of excuse to say this, but an old lady who was about to get into retirement, with glasses just below below the nose. And yeah, so then I took him up on that opportunity, and since then I've been in hospitality since.
Tell us, you obviously managed the Saxon Hotel during 2010,
yeah.
The World Cup. What was your best memory from 2010?
For me, there were a couple actually, but I think the first one was, the build up to it also for me was phenomenal. I've never seen this country so united, based on just this one global event that was going to be taking place. And for me, it was, the opportunity of meeting, like your Bill Clinton and the Prince of England, just to mention a few, So for that for me was a highlight. And the opportunity, basically being in the same space as those, world icons, for me was just the highlight of everything.
And then, Sabelo, you went on to win some very prestigious international awards in hospitality. Can you tell us a little bit more?
No, certainly. I'll start with the first award, which was the Saxon, where I obviously started my hospitality career, my hospitality journey. They obviously then decided they owned a private game reserve. So obviously they decided to commercialize that, obviously just after the World Cup. And on my first year, actually, we actually won the best private game reserve in South Africa. And the following year, which was my year 2, not only did we win the South African best game reserve, however, it was Africa and South Africa best private game reserve. And, the awards since then just kept on coming, yeah. But those ones are the most memorable ones because, you were obviously competing with world-renowned, hospitality groups actually at that time, and we were just a small private game reserve of 12 hectares, which was like the only one in South Africa, whereas other properties obviously, like our group properties, and they have all these financial structures to build whatever they wanted. So for us, it was just about taking what was already existed and just work from that, So those are very memorable ones actually, the first 2 years.
And today you are the GM at Riboville, one of the leading equestrian estates in the country, probably in the world.
Yeah.
And you also run your own company. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Oh, okay, fantastic, yeah. So, Travel A-Star. Travel A-Star is basically a hospitality and tourism consulting company. It was established in 2016, and that was when everything just basically when I started my entrepreneur journey, and it has been a very, very interesting journey. And the best part about it is it's there's nothing as exciting as when you start seeing the places that that you used to work for now are working with you. Like I said, I had previously made a joke with my previous managing director at the Saxon, where I even once told him, like, what, I remember for about a good 9 to 10 years, I was getting pay slips from you. Now for the last 3 years, actually 5 years now, I've been sending him invoice, So, and we've got, a Travel A-Star is it's growing, like I said, it's a business that started from nothing. And we now, engaging with some international companies, and then it's just exciting.
And tell us, Sabelo, before COVID, hospitality was the #1 job creator in this country. Now it's the one industry that's hit the hardest. How did you survive the last 18 months?
So I think for me, it's one needed to start getting more, innovative and just to think out of the box. And we've always been preaching about relationships, and for me, business relationships that I've built over the years is what kept myself and Travel A-Star going. And obviously people that have played a part and a role with Travel A-Star since its inception phase, I mean, till today, we all have survived, all these trying times throughout COVID. Yes, it did affect us tremendously. However, we obviously now had to come up with strategies in terms of how we will be able to make things work. And hence why, obviously, again, I found myself, through the relationships that I've built, I found myself in this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful equestrian boutique hotel, which, for me, it's a property which I feel has so much potential, and I'm certain I'll be able to take it up there, to compete with all the, to compete on a global stage.
Okay, so Sabelo, you're obviously working in the most difficult industry right now in hospitality, and it's an industry that had to close its doors almost a number of times in the last 18 months. So what's driving you? What gets you to get up in the morning and be the leader you are and the leader that people look up to?
So, waking up every morning, it's you always have to keep in mind that you have. I've got about close to 70 staff members, that their livelihood are dependent on the decisions that I make, which is not a very easy thing. So at the end of the day, it's not about, it ends up not being just about me. It's about, I mean, if you think about 70 staff members and you think about their family structures, you're looking at more than 300, people that are dependent on how you structure and how you strategize and how you make things happen. So with every morning when I wake up, I always think of that to say, how do I continue making sure that these people's livelihood are not affected by the current global situation that we are facing at the present moment.
And you're now in the third lockdown, and I believe after the first lockdown, it was almost a turning point for Riboville, where you had to face either closing or carrying on some way. And you decided to carry on, right?
Yeah. And which was a very, 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 very challenging, because that's when I just started, where it was about 4 months into the whole initial lockdown, and with what people had to realize was the fact that you were basically, we were working backwards in terms of everything that you did. You always needed to keep in mind that you are pretty much about 4 to 5 months behind with everything that you're doing. So one needed to instill that kind of in the team's mindset to say, look, we might be doing better than we were, but that doesn't mean we're doing great. We still have about another 4 months that we still need to recover from. And the kind of relationship that I have with the team, I strongly believe in relationships with your staff members, with your clients as well, because you get in situations where if you've got good relationships, you are still able to continue. You are able to, whenever you're coming up with new ideas, you start approaching. That's how you test your market. You test your market with people that are close to you, and that's your, from the business relationships, to see, okay, is this idea working? And if it's working, then you start spreading out to, to
in hindsight, it was the right decision.
It's, touch wood, I'm so grateful that, it worked out. I mean, like I said, even right now as we speak, I still have the whole entire team that I had from day one when I started here. And yes, when you sit and obviously in decision-making meetings, with your directors, the word retrenchment always comes up. And for me, I always try and convert that and try and figure out other possible ways, to to try and not find ourselves in those kind of situations. And that's how I'm saying I'm grateful till today. I've got the same amount of people that I started with, and they are still here today. They're all coming to work, and not necessarily on everyday basis, but we're just trying to make sure I think we are all understanding the vision and how to get to the vision, and I think because of the fact that we now all singing the same song, dancing to the same tune, is what's actually key at the present moment,
So Sabelo, a lot of businesses, especially in hospitality, closed shop, they closed down, they didn't make it. You survived, you learned some valuable lessons, and you reinvented. Can you maybe, for the businesses out there that are now suffering, that are now thinking of closing down, what is your advice?
From the leadership point of view, right? My perception of leadership might be different to other people, but I've always said, if there's ever a time for leaders to lead, is now. When things are well, leaders, there's no need for leadership. There's a leader for management, all right? But when things are bad, that's when leadership, your leader, when you call yourself a leader, this is when your leadership needs to be implemented, So my advice will always be, a leader, all right? A leader needs to lead, and a leader needs to listen. And that's the most important thing. And when I say listen, it's you'll be quite surprised in terms of we tend not to listen to the people that are on the operational point of view. And I'll make a typical example, like your waiters, your housekeepers. If you put those people together in one room, the amount of ideas that you'll be able to come out with those people from there, because they, day in, day out, they are the ones that are interacting with clients. They're the ones that, just by sheerly going to a table to serve a drink or whatever the case may be, right, they might catch up a conversation of how people are trying to innovate with, in these challenging times. And you must give them the opportunity, to say, look, it's a collective, let me put it this way, it's a collective effort, all right?
So it's a collective effort to come up with new ideas.
To come up with new ideas, yeah. Yes, at the end of the day, you still need to make the decision, and you're still the one that needs to drive them,
So Sabelo, I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership and being a leader mean to you in these times, in these trying times?
Right, excuse me. Future leader for me is like I say, I call it servant leadership, right? So servant, basically, when you're a leader, you need to understand that your duties and responsibilities are to serve, and not just only to serve, but you need to have the desire, to inspire, and to and then to motivate others as well. That's my perception of leadership.
And Sabelo, what is your advice for future leaders? There's millions of youth waiting for an opportunity, and looking to build a career and maybe a business in these tough times. Yeah. What is your advice? What are the new skills they need?
Leadership is yes, some other people are born with it, right? But others are not. But we can all be leaders, right? So I've always said, in order for you to be a leader, right, you need to have been led somehow, somewhere along your path, and I mean, for me, for instance, that's why I always say, I'm fortunate enough, that I have the experience of being led, and then people don't believe, like when I tell them, because my mother is a leader to me, because she led me to the person that I am, today, through her guidance and her leadership and all those kind of things. And it's very important, like I said previously, that when you're a leader, you're not just someone who just sits on the throne and make commands. You need to be in a space where you are able to listen, right? And you need to understand, leadership for me it's not people that talk a lot. It's people that that listen and grasp ideas, and then come up with implementations of strategies. And for future leaders, it's people who are inspiring to be leaders. I always say you need to first identify who you are, firstly, all right, and like I said, be in a position where you are led, in order for you to find yourself, to understand the criteria of leadership. Yeah, because like I said, some people are born with it, but you can born with it but not know how to implement it. So it's equally important, to seek advice from successful leaders. There's plenty. We have all categorized the country as saying we have no leadership. Right, leadership is there. However, it's just not being implemented correctly, and it's not being implemented by the right people.
Now, Sabelo, looking back over your own journey, your own leadership journey, which ones would you say are the pivotal moments that were really important for taking your career to the next level?
It feels like I'm just repeating myself in terms of answering, but it's again. It goes down to, like I said, I was just fortunate enough to be in a position where I was also led, right? Yeah, and like I said, I was led in the right way. Like, I'll make a typical example.
Your mentor?
Yes, by my mentor. So, like I said, my primary leadership, like I said, that was the inception of that. That's when I think my recognition of I can be a leader came from. It came from, like I said, my mother, and through that's when I was able to realize. If you look at from primary school, Sabelo was a school prefect. From high school, Sabelo became a captain. Sabelo became a hostel head boy. Sabelo became a deputy head boy at school. So, and like I said, I don't think I was born with it, but I was just fortunate enough that I was just led by the right people. And coming to career as well, to my career, I always say I'm forever grateful, for the fact that I've made a relationship and with this other gentleman called George Cohen, who is actually my mentor.
Right.
To such an extent, as much as we are in the hospitality space, he said something very interesting to the current director of Riboville, to say, even if Sabelo was working in a mine, I would have still supported him.
Okay.
So which was,
So Sabelo, today you are a mentor to future leaders. Yeah. Can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yeah. There's plenty.
I know there's plenty. Just one or two.
So, I had a gentleman, obviously, in 2016 when I just started Travel A-Star, right, where he was just working as a driver for one of the shuttle service company when I was still working for the Saxon Hotel. And at that time, I just started Travel A-Star, and this man had, you could see it. He was not. It's not that he was a lazy person. It was due to circumstances, that he found himself, without a job, and I gave him the opportunity, and he started as a driver for Travel A-Star, just dropping off parcels and etc. and through the and my agreement was to him to say, look, in 3 years' time, he's either going to be part and parcel of Travel A-Star in terms of from the director and management structure, or some other way he will be either a service provider or a partner in some form of way.
Right.
And that's exactly happened. 3 years later, the gentleman by the name of Simon, he's actually running his own tour operating company. And I remember when it was a very emotional experience for me when his wife who I've never actually dealt with, but obviously, this gentleman will get home and then he will tell his wife about his work experience with Travel A-Star. And within a space of a year, from a driver, he became my operations manager. And from my operation manager, we now actually business partners. And his wife actually said something very interesting. I said, what, Sabelo, you were God sent. When you gave my husband the opportunity, we were about to lose our house. My two kids got kicked out of school, and we just didn't know where to go. Right now, one of the kids is doing the second year in university, and they stay in a very beautiful property in the south of Johannesburg. And I mean, he's actually again one of Riboville service providers. Which is for me, somehow it's rewarding. And that's why I've always said to people that my success is not always about the kind of cars that Sabelos drive. It's not my cars, it's Travel A-Star vehicles, because we are a tour operating company as well. My success has always been based on the kind of influence and the kind of positive impact that I instill in others. And for me, how I determine a successful project, if I had made a difference in someone else's life, and that's how I think my blessings are coming through.
So now, Sabelo, you already mentioned a couple of your own role models.
Yeah.
Looking back over your own career, over your own leadership journey, can you maybe share role models that you encountered and that you would recommend future leaders should study and learn from?
Yeah, there's, from a personal point of view, my current mentor, right, George Cohen, like I said, the reason why I always call him, a good leader is purely he took me, for instance, a guy who had no idea whatsoever about the industry that I was about to get into. And to this date, all I do is I sleep and I eat and I drink hospitality and tourism. And that was just purely by the kind of leadership that his methodology of leadership and his thoughts and his views on leadership and how to lead and how to teach others how to lead, And
So he saw something in Sabelo.
Exactly, yeah. And I'll never forget the day when he said to me, when I stood up at that office, when he had rejected my offer when I was going to sell the insurance product to him. As I stood up, he said to me, "You know what? You are in the wrong industry," and that was about over 10 years ago. And look at me now. I've been doing this for about 14 years now, and for me, it feels like, how can I put it? It's not work anymore. It's what I live it. It's a destiny for me now.
So Sabelo, how can our listeners connect with you, and where can they follow you?
So basically, we are on almost like on all public social media platforms. We are on Instagram at Travel A-Star. You'll also be able to find us on LinkedIn, especially on LinkedIn, for TAS recruitment, especially because for us that's our platform that we utilize it for obviously candidates that are looking for work, and for clients, for companies also that are looking for good candidates. So LinkedIn, we are very much active, and you can also go into our website, which is www.travelastar.co.za, or you can obviously call our offices. We are based in Dainfern in four ways here.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Sabelo, last but not least, what is your message to the future leaders out there that are looking to build a business, that are looking to build a career? What is one piece of advice that you would like to convey to them that they should implement in their own life?
Yeah. So it's not easy, right? And I've always said, if you don't fall 5 or 8 times, then you need to be in a position where your dreams scare you. That's what I always say. If If your dreams don't scare you, all right, then it's easy. And when it's easy, it's for me, it's not worth it, you know. So it's never give up, right? And every time when you get that rejection, all right, because you will go through those processes where you get rejected about 10 or 15 times, right, and knocking on those doors, and you must always keep in mind why you started what you started in the first place.
Sabelo, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and being a role model, showing us a way, inspiring us, and helping us to excel in these tough times.
Dr. Nick, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was a great pleasure actually having to share this lovely interview with you. And and I'm looking forward to many, if there will be so. You know, it's really a great platform for not only for myself, I think for future leaders and current leaders as well. You know, and I think in one of your books where you've just mentioned that you're never too old to learn. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you.